Hello, I'm Luke Spark. I'm the writer, director, creator, editor of Occupation Rainfall. So, what inspired me to participate in this film is that I had done Occupation, which was a lower budget sci-fi action film in 20 it was released in 2018, and when I was doing that, it was going to be a one and done film, and I was going to move on to the next one. And it wasn't until the editing process that I sort of started conjuring up an idea of a potential franchise and the continuing story of the characters that I created. And I got very excited about very particular moments and more involved in the backstory of the aliens and why they're here and what does that mean for Earth and how it relates to our history and history lessons and what I could use that to expand upon the action scenes and sort of give a story a much more worldwide appeal than a smaller story of occupation. So that's how I came up with the idea and how I started to get involved in creating those worlds. So the challenges that we faced creating this film was many. It was a massive film. I sat down with the producers very early on and said that Occupation, the first one, was very small, and I wrote it that way because it was supposed to be even smaller, and this one I wanted to be big. So the challenges were various across many departments and just overall encompassing. So we had to really sit down and figure out how we're going to do an independent film that's supposed to act like a Hollywood studio blockbuster. So that meant we had to cut the filming into blocks, which creates many smaller problems on top of the bigger problems, including continuity and getting actors back in and just the flow and effect of the editing process of how the dailies come in. And so we cut the film into shooting blocks of 3 to 4 weeks each. We shot Ken Jeong out, we shot Tem out in blocks, and then we came back and did Dan Gillies months later. And the finishing off the story for a few weeks. So that was very, very challenging. And then once we got into the editing process, the first movie, Occupation, had 400 visual effects shots, and this movie had 1,600 visual effects shots. And to do that on an independent film budget, again, was quite various problems all over the place. It involved me and my team having to really figure out visual effects and know what each meant, because visual effects is such an encompassing situation that you don't really, directors, I don't think a lot of directors don't know what goes into them. And I really wanted to figure out what goes into them. So I know, and I can use the shorthand and use the terminology and know how long the shot takes and what goes into each shot. So that was the huge challenge up until the release, was the visual effects. So what I hope audiences will take away after watching this film, and what I hope viewers should know watching the film, is I really set this up to be a sort of American style blockbuster film in Australia. We don't do many of them. We do great dramas and great comedies, and there's nothing like a comic book franchise over here. Nothing like Star Wars, nothing like Marvel. And I guess I'm an 80s child and I love all those movies, and I love being in those worlds and going to comic cons and meeting the people that dress up in fantastic costumes. And that's what got me excited after I made Occupation One. Is I saw this as a comic book style film series, and it's bright and it's colorful and it's pacey and it's action packed, and that's really what the genesis of this film is. It's not out to be anything else, but along the way, if you meet characters in the movie, Amelia the Human, Gary the Alien, Tim Morrison, I do hope that people, like those characters. There is a bit of backstory to them all, and while I'm not overly political, there's definitely themes that I like to weave into stories about our history and how it relates to this. There's many similarities between alien colonies rocking up to Earth and wanting to make it their land, and there's lots of parallels we can draw of that in history as well, of people rocking up and wanting their land for themselves. There's history lessons in war. There's many history lessons that I always like to come back on, and it's sprinkled throughout the film. PTSD, there's interrogation, there's waterboarding, all that sort of what it means to be human. How do we classify humanity? You can't just is it our right to kill a whole species? Many things of that in there, all woven into an action film that's exciting and bombastic, and that's the way it was designed. What's the one piece of advice I would give aspiring creators? I'm sure there's many directors out there that are going to give their version of what advice they would give. I think I will hone in on world building, creating franchise and creating worlds, because I don't think that's done much here in Australia. For me, going into a big film like this and wanting it to continue in the future, it all comes down to world building for me. I really love world building, and that involves really not only honing into your story of the overarching acts of the script and the structure, but also into finding moments where you can expand people's horizon and audience's perspective of characters or the environment, or how you can weave in different characters in the background, come up with little stories while you're shooting the film, and put them in the background and let people sort of catch on, maybe viewings 2 and 3 and 4. For me, that's very important. Also, really working with the art department and visual effects department on designs and working out your backstory for each design and what it does, what does it mean, how does it reflect to everything in the film, and really trying to work all that together. So I would like to see a lot more of that in the Australian film industry, and I hope that people take this advice and watch the film. Just the last thing I'd like to say about the film is that it takes an army to make a film, and it took an even bigger army to make this film, with really passionate filmmakers that really wanted to see action shows and sci-fi shows come out of Australia with the Australian unique voices. And what has been great has been the feedback from around the world is that the film, while set in Australia and our accents are natural, we're used to hearing Americans, especially talking in action films like this. It's not over the top Australian. There's a few opera Australians, but it's not generally over the top. And also to see our great landscape used in a sci-fi realm, and also just the feedback of just the multi-national casting in the film has been very well received. Mark Cole Smith plays a commando, Jet Tranter as Amelia, and each bring a lot of flavour to the film, which is what current Australia looks like, and it's been very well received overseas in that respect. So I just wanted to make note that I'm very happy that that has been noted and received, because it's something that's very important to me going in.